Welcome back to the Levine Family Racing Podcast. We are recording this episode on Wednesday, May 13th. I am joined this week by Mike Wheeler, the competition director at Levine Family Racing. Wheels, wanted to get you on the podcast this week as we are getting back on track. I think everyone's listened to me, Lang, and JD talk about the boring front office side of everything for long enough now. So wanted to get back into some of the action of the competition stuff. So, Wheels, you are someone who will be traveling for us this weekend as we get ready to go to Darlington. What precautions are you having the race team take kind of at NASCAR's recommendation to stay safe from the coronavirus while we go back to competing?
A lot of what we're trying to do is basically the basic CDC guidelines, which is, obviously social distancing when you can. Obviously, once you leave your house, protect yourself. Wearing a mask at all times when outside away from your house. And obviously washing your hands. Don't touch your face and really don't touch anybody else at the same time.
So it's different, right? I mean, it very inherently, we've never been at the racetrack with guys wearing masks before. Do you foresee this causing any, I don't want to call it difficulties because we know it is a necessity, but will there be a learning curve that comes along with any of these new precautions at the racetrack?
Yeah, for sure. There'll be a little bit of these little hiccups here and there that you knew about up front, but you're not used to having to work around. Obviously, you used to be able. Obviously, the racetrack's loud, especially during the race. So reading lips before was something you did, but at the same point, a lot of guys actually wore full face helmets and full face socks over their fire protecting underwear. So that was always one of those things you realize when you talk to that guy, you couldn't actually read lips type of deal. But obviously you don't want to be hanging all over somebody as well, or getting that close. So, usually you can yell in somebody's ear, and we're not really supposed to be doing that either. So there'll be things like that. But then again, we have radios, we have digital radios, we have, analog radios, we have intercom systems that, we're going to take more advantage of to, have these communications, on top of just chat windows. You can use Slack and Skype, whatever else you need to do to kind of talk to each other. So there's a lot of different avenues that we're going to have to use, compared to how we've been doing the last couple of years. But at the same point, none of it can hold us back.
I was going to say, we've all gotten pretty proficient at using different forms of communication here over the last couple of months, right? I never thought I'd be using Skype and Zoom so darn much.
Yeah, no doubt.
So another piece of changes that we're seeing at the racetrack, the rosters are going to look a little different, right? Who we're allowed to bring to the racetrack. Yes. How is it going to be different on Sunday, with the different roles that are within the race team?
Yeah, definitely lost a handful of guys per team. The multi-car organizations lost a little bit more than what we did, being a single car team, because we're allowed to bring two organizational guys. But generally, we lost, a few key guys that usually help us get through the weekend. With the shortened schedule, it's a little bit easier to get through, but at the same point, we utilized our whole road crew, 100% to, optimize really pit stops is probably one of the biggest thing. There's a lot of jobs behind the wall that are intricate enough to make the pit stop, function fully and as fast as possible, that we really had to relearn, kind of re-divvy up and get new people doing new things. Some of the stuff we're not so worried about, such as like running tires after pit stops, as far as taking the used tires back to Goodyear. But a lot of the stuff as far as like handing off fuel cans, doing the pit sign, pulling and throwing hoses for the air guns. It's a critical element that can easily trip up the pit crew and, really restart your race and put you in the back. So a lot of those things are we work through this week, and continue to work through. But at the same point, we got enough experienced guys going to the track that we should be able to handle it.
So we talked a little bit about this last week when I had Jeremy Lang on. He had a copy of that 30-something page document that NASCAR provided to us on the rules and regulations around Darlington, right? So can you kind of walk us through when the hauler arrives at the racetrack, or when you guys start to arrive at the racetrack, What's the process going to look like? My understanding is the car comes off the hauler and you're basically going straight into technical inspection and your day's just rolling from there. Can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, basically the haulers are going to park actually the night before this event. And one truck driver is going to spend a night in the truck just to be safe with DOT hours, driving back and forth. It's just far enough that if you work a full day at the track, you got to be careful with your total hours you worked. The morning, the trucks will be there already. We'll drive up or drive down. We'll drive south from Charlotte area to Darlington, race morning. They're staggering the pit crew entry times in order to do screening. Being a little bit farther back in points, we actually get to sleep in a little bit later compared to some of these guys. And that will actually dictate when you start tech process as well. Basically, once the car is unloaded, there'll be basically a handful of guys that push the car right to tech. You're allowed to do a couple things like hook up some shocks, but you can't really swap out any parts. You're supposed to be ready to go right away. You're not going to go push to the garage area and set it up and put it on jack stands. You're going to actually roll right to tech. From there, the tech line's going to be a little bit different because we used to help the officials do a lot of the tech as far as handing them tools, handing them wheel plates, putting height sticks in the car. But we're not allowed to touch any of the technical inspection equipment, like templates and all that kind of stuff, mainly because obviously cross-contamination and hands-on approach. So we have to be really aware about that, and it'd probably be a slower process because of that. But obviously you want to reduce all risk as possible. But hopefully, you present the car to tech, it passes with flying colors, and then you push it to the grid, and then you're kind of ready to race. After everyone gets through tech, about an hour or two before the race, I'm not sure if they have a time announced yet, but they're going to basically allow everyone to warm their cars up, run them, plug the computers in, make sure they're all running about right. We're not allowed to refill with fuel, which is a key aspect. So you don't want to run too long, but also we're allowed to change tires at that point. When we get there, we usually get our full set of tires, and it takes the tire guy a couple hours to go through them all, make sure they're all, sized right, air pressured right, check the wheels, make sure they're 100%, put them in sets and get sizes on them. And, that takes a couple hours. So we can't do that at the truck. But fortunately, NASCAR is giving us some time there a couple hours before the event to kind of change tires in the car, make sure that's all good to go, and then we'll be race ready.
It's awesome. It's kind of a throwback, or not even a throwback. It's just different, man. It's meat and potatoes, kind of just go out there, run what you brung kind of racing, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of times in the past where you've done one-day shows, and sometimes you don't get a chance to qualify. I mean, honestly, in 2018 at Indy, we had a similar deal. We had to wait through 2 days of rain, but we actually unloaded whatever you had, and started the race to where you were, which is, just okay.
So it's funny you bring that race up I was with LFR in 2018, and that was actually the first race that we put Regan Smith back in the car after Casey had his health issues. And I remember very clearly that race because there was no practice, no qualifying, and Regan hadn't been in a cup car or in any race car in like 2 years. And it was like, all right, well, go into turn one and just figure it out and see if it comes back to you. And he said turn 1 and 2 was tough, but by the time he got to the backstretch, it was like riding a bike, So
yeah.
Kind of funny memories that come along with that stuff. Looking past just this first Darlington race, what do you think? Give us your take on the starting procedures that we're going to have, kind of the pseudo qualifying or lack thereof qualifying formats where we're going to invert the top 20 and all that good stuff. How do you see that really affecting the race or strategies that might get put into play?
I enjoy the little bit of an invert. I grew up short track racing in Northeast, and up there you had a handicap system. And basically the better you ran, the farther back you started. And it made for more passing. The better cars had to pass to win races. Sometimes it ended up with different winners, which is also enjoyable. But at the same point, the better racers, the guy that could pass, not just lap time, but just pass and race hard, were the ones that shined. So I actually, having some kind of a random draw and a inverted, starting order the following week, I'm all about it. I think it's, if you end up having the point leader start on the pole every week, all he's going to do is win more stages and get more points and kind of separate himself from the group. You want to create a little bit of an environment to make the better guys shine. And I think having that little bit of an invert does that for everyone.
So I would be remiss if I didn't mention, if anybody's watching this podcast, we're talking about Darlington, and Wheels has got a pretty sweet looking trophy over his left shoulder here. That is the Southern 500 trophy there, isn't it, Wheels?
Yes, that's correct.
That was 20. What year was that?
2017. Yep.
2017 with Denny Hamlin, right? So very cool there. So leads me into my next question. Um, you're going back to Darlington, where you've obviously had some success with a rookie. We talked about this the last time you were on about, Christopher going to a play track for the first time. Darlington's pretty notorious for being one of the tougher or more unique tracks on the circuit. So what are you and Jason doing to really help get Christopher prepared to take on this track?
Yeah, definitely. It's a different animal than most tracks we've been to. Fortunately, he has run a race there before with Xfinity, so it's not I don't even know what this track is or never know what this track feels like, but he's actually been there. During his downtime, we're actually doing a number of simulator events with TRD to make sure he's got plenty of laps around the virtual track, which, it makes a difference. To understand the conditions changing, tire fall off, get a feel for things. It is definitely helpful. I mean, obviously starting cold turkey for a rookie is not easy. Searching for a feel if something's off to start is going to be a challenge. But ultimately, a few reps in the simulator, watching past races, and having a few conversations, does help, hopefully that learning curve. And, at the same point, we'll be starting not in the front. We'll be starting mid-pack and towards the back. It allows him to kind of slowly get to speed and not fence the car on lap one. We're not trying to lead the race by, lap 20. We're gonna have a comp caution lap 30. So that's a kind of a nice, you got to make a 30 lap run, kind of nice and smooth and stay on the lead lap. And after that, we can kind of adjust as we need to.
So this might be a stupid question, right? But for the fans that, they're not involved with it every day, we hear the saying a lot of you brought it up here with Christopher's actually been to Darlington before, right? Which is always interesting to me because I see that there is a pretty big difference between cup cars and Xfinity cars or even a truck, right? Based off your experience with the drivers that you've worked with, how big really is it? Like, what really makes that difference of, well, he's at least seen the track before? Is it just like the familiarity factor? Like, is it a psychological thing almost for the driver? What's your take on that?
A little bit of all the above. There's no doubt having a driver confident going into an event will create speed, and will make you race better. If a driver is nervous before the event and shows up nervous, it usually doesn't go very well. So, having him, have plenty of laps in a truck in an Xfinity car. And then again, having some laps this year in a cup car at other tracks where he's been in Xfinity cars and trucks, he's enough talented guy. He'll adapt, he'll adapt hopefully, calmly and smoothly. But ultimately, as much as it is, every time they do a tire change and an aero package change, it is like learning all over again. The vehicle might be a cup car, but if the spoiler size changes, the splitter changes, or the tire changes, you do have to learn how to drive the car all over again. Some nuances are not very big, but other years when you go from the 750 track to a 550 spec track, it can be very large. And the better drivers usually prevail. So Christopher is not a new guy at this. I mean, he's in his mid-20s. He's been racing, the Premier Series, National Touring Series for years now. So he's not a total green guy as far as being, new at all this. But at the same point, hopefully he gets some good sleep, has enough confidence coming in, and it can shine as good as he can.
Awesome. So something that is also very unique about what we're going to do here is not just what happened Sunday. It's that we're going to do it all over again on Wednesday, right?
Yes.
So how, for people that don't understand the process, include people that don't understand, including myself, how much are we really going to be able to learn on Sunday and then quickly turn around and apply to that car for Wednesday? Because it's a totally different car for us, right?
It can be. Yep.
Okay. So it's a quicker window than you guys are used to working in normally, right? So how much does that kind of affect your takeaways and what you can build into the Wednesday race?
I mean, I would tell you it is highly advantageous to go back-to-back races with a couple days in between. One thing that's going to be different is going to be a night race versus a day race, and that's enough of a difference to kind of have a question mark on where you need to be come the second race. But honestly, the truth is the first race we have, say, car A, if that car comes back pretty clean and we actually run pretty good with it, we're going to do what we can to flip that car for the next race. Forget cost savings and all that kind of stuff. That's a nice little bonus. But if the car drives good and the driver feels good about it, you can make subtle changes. Subtle changes are big changes to make the car better for the next event. And generally, knowing what that car is, from the last event, to be able to tweak on it with just whether it be shocks and springs or a little bit of aero package change, you can make it better because you have better notes with that car. And at the same point, usually we have, 6 months or 3 months between events. And when you have those multiple events between, the same track, you learn so much. So a lot of stuff you ran in race one, say if we were doing Phoenix one, in March and then going back in the fall, you learn so much that your notes from Phoenix one are almost pointless. This is the opposite, where you didn't learn anything else new. All you learned is what you wish you did better than the first race, with both setup and execution. So I think a lot of it is we can kind of do a quick evaluation Monday and Tuesday, basically put it in the car Tuesday night, ship it back down to Darlington, and then go do even better on come Wednesday.
So looking even further ahead than that Wednesday Darlington race for just a second, we will go back to the Charlotte Motor Speedway. How do you guys feel about going into Charlotte? I know Charlotte's a lot more different this year in that normally we have more of a 1.5 mile notebook, I guess, built up by this point in the season, right?
Yeah.
But I guess now it's kind of reversing that project where you're kind of starting with Charlotte as your 2020 notebook. Am I kind of correct saying that?
Yeah, it's fair. And the other thing is we didn't race the Charlotte Oval last fall. A lot of the tracks, we go to twice a year, and when you race them last fall, you have more recent notes. But we haven't raced the Charlotte Oval since, Memorial Day last year, which is a long time ago compared to everything we've learned in the course of the 550 spec package. But at the same point, a lot of our cars ran really well. A lot of Toyota cars ran well and won the race. 19 car won the race. So we have good notes. We have a good package there. Again, Seabell hasn't been there yet with this kind of a deal. But Charlotte is not that unique compared to, its sister tracks. It's a very, average banked 1.5 miles that you've been to. Yes, Texas is its own animal now with the 2 different corners. But a lot of stuff used to apply from Vegas to Chicago to Charlotte to Texas. And this will do a little bit of that. The 550 spec tracks are different. Some of these tracks you can hold it wide open depending on the tire and the grip and the track. Charlotte's not that case, especially if it's going to be pretty hot, like it's going to look like it's going to be here. But at the same point, obviously racing in your backyard, it's really close to what LFR is. The sense of pride there to kind of put on a show for everyone and try to get a trophy.
Absolutely. So we came out of Darlington last year. LFR did with a top 10. You were the crew chief for us last year on that deal. So take me to late Sunday night. Wheels is leaving the garage. What can we do on Sunday to make you feel like it was a good, solid day? Even if it's not the finish position, what can we learn at Darlington that's going to make the team feel like we're headed we didn't start the season we wanted to, or the way we wanted to, right?
Yeah.
What can we accomplish on Sunday that's going to make you feel like, and Jason and Michael feel like we're heading in a better direction for 2020?
Yeah, I would say, some of the biggest things is obviously finishing the race in our control. Obviously, accidents happen, the bolt of the radiator earlier in the year, that's just those freak things that put us behind in points. But, we've also shot ourselves in the foot a few times with wrecking and just kind of bad execution days. So I would tell you that, having a sound starting setup would be a small victory. Not having to really throw the book at it during a race would be, would show that the guys are doing their homework, which, I know they are, but you still want to execute that point. over the course of the race, hopefully you make the car better. It's a long race. There'll be a lot of pit stops, a lot of different tires going in the car. Yes, dirty air matters, but at the end of the day, you'll have enough chances to make it better that hopefully you can make gains on it over the course of the day and end stronger than what you started. Unless you just hit it perfect off the truck, which I'll give them a gold star for that one too. Executing on pit roads, another big thing. We haven't been the strongest there yet, so having a solid day on pit road, not necessarily gaining spots, but holding court, because it involves both seatbelt, driving down pit road, not speeding on pit road, getting in a stall, the pit crew executing the stop with a good time, not having a loose wheel, being able to get adjustments in the car, and then getting back off pit road and never damaging the car in the process. There's a lot going on there that if you can say you held court there, that is a hard task in itself. Ultimately, after that, hopefully we can say that our communication during the race went well. We have a lot of new things going on with, obviously wearing masks and, physical distancing. That's a, little bit of a challenge, but at the same point, if we can hit all those marks and kind of hit our steady stride, I look forward to kind of going back there a few days later.
Absolutely. So we've seen a lot of iRacing over the last 2 months, right? What do you see the trend being for the drivers when we do get back to racing? I know a lot of times we joke, like when you get a rain delay or something, it seems like all the drivers get pent up and they're just ready to go out there and they start wadding them left and right? They start getting racy. Do you see that happening in that everyone's kind of been down and bored for the last 2 months now?
I mean, I would say there's going to be a definite challenge for some of these guys who, some of the even better teams might do it, might just have an ill handling car to start the race. You never know what you have until you get going. You do all the homework you can, but we can't drive the car around the racetrack until the start of the race. So some of these, up front guys, mid-pack guys, or backmarkers might have an ill handling car and end up having problems. At the same point, you have an oil leak. You can have something come loose that could, make for a story or change a story from what was the plan was.
Like a jack bolt.
Yeah, a jackstop bolt falling out of the car going through the radiator. Hopefully we're good for another 20 years on that one because I never had that one before. But the truth is, a lot of these guys, if they're not comfortable in their seat or their AC unit doesn't fit right, or, anything can happen right now that usually happens in practice. That could make part of the story and make the drivers kind of, I don't say lose their mind, but not perform at their best capability. Especially when some of these guys are, inverted in points or finishing positions, that it's going to be some guys that you don't usually have to pass for position. So it's definitely got its own story, which I enjoy. It's still competing on a fair race course and, just looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, before we get you out of here, I mentioned it earlier. You have won the Southern 500 at Darlington. Give me your favorite memory from that race. I mean, that's one of the hallmarks in the sport, man. To say you've won that race, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I remember we learned a lot during that race. I think we had the best car, definitely top 2 car, but we ended up getting short pitted by the 78 car in Truex to get the lead taken from us. And then later on in the race, when we were leading the race, they did it again. One thing that happened during that race was we had to kind of bite the bullet and let them short pit us and take the lead for a while in order to have better tires at the end. And it was something we did live that we realized this is going to look dumb if we get a caution, but if it goes green, we're going to get it back. And then Denny missed pit road. Coming at pit road, he just missed it and gave up 10 seconds. And it was like, ooh, this is going to go bad. But remembering it, and it's, your last win, so you always kind of remember that one, especially, the big shiny trophy. He was able to make that back up because of the strategy and how good the car was and how much he wanted to win. To kind of catch the 78 car with 2 laps to go and put the pressure on the 78 car, fenced it, we took the lead with the last lap. And we had a newer crew then. A lot of the guys were young, so it was really their first win as a group. And obviously it's one of the biggest wins you can have, top 4 wins out there. So, having that night kind of close to home, my wife was there. It's one of those things you just kind of never forget.
It's awesome, man. You got me salivating there, man. We've never been to Victory Lane at LFR, man. So we're looking forward to that day. We
Well,
really
hopefully
are.
put a smile on everyone's face sometime soon.
Heck yeah, man. Well, thank you very much, Wheels. Appreciate you doing this. I'm sure we're gonna get you back on here more now that we're actually racing. I think people are sick of me listening to me do WrestleMania reviews with Jeremy Lang, food reviews with Jeremy Davidson. Now that we actually got cars racing, I think we got some more fun stuff to talk about. So thank you, man, and we'll see everybody soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks again for listening to the Levine Family Racing Podcast. If you are listening and are interested in learning more about the business side of NASCAR, check out our partner section on our website. There you will find a blog with great articles about sponsorship cost, how to activate in NASCAR, and much more. You will also find a couple of ebooks we have put together to help inform you about the business side of NASCAR and how that works for a race team. Just go to our website, lfr95.com, and click on the Partners tab at the top.